Let's Cover That podcast is brought to you by CM&F Group, professional liability services for over 200 healthcare professions. Visit our website at cmfgroup.com/podcast for more info.
Hey everybody, we have another episode of Let's Cover That. I'm Will Sullivan with my co-host
Antonina Agruza. And today we have with us Max Mayblum, founder and CEO at Caregivers. Max, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Max, tell us a little bit about Givers and how you found your way to the company.
Sure. So just a little bit of background. In 2019, I was an early employee at a telehealth startup called Paloma Health. We were bringing telemedicine to a chronic condition called hypothyroidism and building this really beautiful digital health consumer experience. And then during COVID, as with so many other families, I witnessed firsthand my family's caregiving situation really ramp up and become pretty intense. And I thought, as someone who was in the healthcare field, I'd be equipped to help my family navigate the costs and logistical burdens of family caregiving. And what I quickly realized is that caregiving and family caregiving in particular is a very broken system, and it's begging for that sort of digital disruption and beautiful consumer ease and experience that we were building at Paloma Health. And so that's what inspired me to get started building Givers in helping caregivers save and find support.
That's awesome. So Max, give us just, kind of walk us through what is Givers, what are you providing to these, family caregivers, especially when we're speaking about this in November and the month and the importance of that.
Yeah, so Givers is a savings and support platform for unpaid family caregivers. So we're working with people who have potentially left their jobs or on top of their jobs are at home taking care of their loved ones, chronically ill family members, aging parents, etc. The population over 65 is set to double by 2050, and we have 53 million Americans who are taking care of loved ones today unpaid, sort of informally behind the scenes. So there's this huge underbelly of the healthcare system with people who are really spending the most time at home and up close and personal to high acuity patients who are driving intense healthcare costs and outcomes. And we're not doing enough to support them. And so Givers is on a mission to build the financial infrastructure for family caregivers to get paid. So what that really looks like tangibly is we offer banking services via a debit card to family caregivers where they can silo their care-related expenses, and we analyze their spending and their profile data to help them access benefits from the government. So cost of caregiving is a huge burden for family members. Most family caregivers spend over $7,400 per year out of pocket on caregiving, and 33% of caregivers have permanently lost or reduced their income from work. And so cost, especially in an inflationary environment, is becoming a huge concern for family caregivers. And we're building a solution for them to access government dollars that can put money back into their pockets. And then just finally, on top of the financial component, we're looking at how we can serve family caregivers in other ways more holistically. So we offer a community where members can interact with one another. We have one-on-one coaching with a licensed social worker for educational and emotional questions. And we have a marketplace where we bring best-in-class products and services for caregivers right to their fingertips. And I can tell you personally, in my family caregiving experience, how difficult and how time-consuming it was just to Google and try and find the right solutions for our loved ones.
So yeah, that's amazing because you hear about it so much, everybody personally, when you're talking about those 53 million people, everybody's being touched upon this now, or they will be in the future, whether they're the caregiver or the one being taken care of. It's just an incredible need. And there's been reports, there's even a 60 Minutes whole rundown on this probably about a decade ago now, talking about just like the need for support for family caregivers. And it's got to be such, so when you go into this, some other countries, when you look around the world, they have more of a capacity to do this, just simplicity, of geographics. People, are born, they grow up in a certain geographic area. The country's smaller, there's more centralized population units, and some of the governments actually support like zoning and subsidization to stay around where your family comes from. But in the U.S., it's kind of so, especially through COVID, There's got to be an explosion of people moving geographically, and then how do you coordinate all this? And then if somebody has to uproot and be with their family member, so how's that look kind of going forward? What are the things you're looking at to kind of continue to help support it, like tangibly, like the costs and different aspects like that?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point that you bring up different countries, right? This is not a uniquely American issue. However, I think it's unique to our culture as to some of the problems that we face. And so, specifically in the workplace, we've seen great advances for women taking on leadership roles and really advancing their careers. But in the home, we haven't seen equal progress in terms of division of labor between men and women. And so women make up 75% of the family caregivers in the US today. And we see that burden and that disparity create issues as to people needing to drop out of their work or make career decisions and figure out how they're going to take care of their loved ones when inevitably someone falls sick or someone gets old and needs support. So it's a pretty unique cultural issue for family caregiving in the US. And then when you look at the economics of it, really what we think about is if we can enable the payment of family caregivers, we can enable predominantly those women, but also men who are family caregiving to take on some time to go find work if they can pay for additional help in the home, or maybe they'll find that, you know what, I want to stay at home, I want to take care of my loved one, this is the honorable and dutiful thing for me to do for my family member, they took care of me when I was growing up, I want to take care of them. And people can make that choice, but they don't have to be, scraping together or going into debt and making really difficult economic decisions to make it happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you guys are shining such a light on what it means for family to be able to do this for their families. And to that point, for anybody that's listening at a later date, it is November that we're recording in, which is National Family Caregivers Month. So, Max, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the recognition of this month and, what are the goals and themes for this year?
Yeah, this is the 25th annual National Family Caregiver Month. It started in 1994 through the Caregiver Action Network, and then President Clinton in 1997 actually signed the first National Family Caregiver Month presidential proclamation, and every president has followed suit by issuing an annual proclamation in recognition and honoring family caregivers each November. So this is really a month to recognize and honor family caregivers across the country for all the work that they're doing. And the theme for 2022 is hashtag caregiving happens, which represents really just how caregiving occurs on a daily basis. Caregiving happens when we're working, when we're trying to get out the door to the grocery store, or when we're out to dinner. And it's really a recognition for family members responding to that call wherever they are in their day to take care of their loved ones.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's also great from like a politically polarizing time to hear about something that's like core to everybody's life and how we're able to kind of move forward together as a country. And I think it's just amazing the type of work that you're doing on this. So when you look into 2023, Max, what do you see on the horizon for you and your team and the impact that you're hoping to make as that year hits?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One is I totally agree with you on this being a unifying topic. As our former First Lady, Rosalind Carter, said, there are four kinds of people in this world: those who have been a caregiver, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. So everyone is impacted by this. It crosses party lines. Caregiving knows no political affiliations. It knows no race. It knows no gender. It's something that we're all going to be impacted by. So this is a really important and unifying topic that we can get around as Americans because we're all experiencing it firsthand. So I'm really excited about the upcoming year for us. We're working on really building out a strong direct-to-consumer offering to help family caregivers to access these benefits that we offer. And then also looking to partner with health plans and employers who are equally value aligned in the mission of engaging with and paying family caregivers. But I really want to share today, I'm excited to share we put together one of the largest scale national surveys for family caregivers this year in our current state of caregiving report. So the only other major survey that we see every 5 years is from AARP around family caregiving. And the last one was in 2020. So our snapshot this year in 2022 found some really dramatic differences and changes as a result of what's happened over the past couple of years between 2020 and 2022. So I'm excited to talk about some of those findings across the lifestyle of caregivers, their impact at work, finances, and also some of the political opportunities here for us to make some change.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's jump in.
So first and foremost, in our survey of over 1,000 caregivers across the country, we wanted to see the impact of COVID and the economy on their lives. And what we found was pretty dramatic. We found that only 1 in 3 caregivers had planned on becoming a caregiver prior to COVID. And in another sign of the economy and how COVID has changed people's lives, 50% of caregivers have moved into their loved ones in 2022 to provide care. And that's up significantly from AARP's findings in 2020, which was 40% of caregivers, and in 2015, which was 34% of caregivers. So the intensity of the caregiving situation is continuing to increase, especially in light of COVID and the economy changing.
That's incredible. And it's like for as a quick shout out, if you read Ray Dalio's like Principles book, and if you get like more of like the child one, which is like all like pictures and stuff, actually shows the trajectory of your life and like when you're working, when you need to be accessible to others and kind of planning for that, whether it's jobs or positions, your own family. And it's interesting, as you say, it's like with COVID, people were hit like smack dab with the need to go and give caregiving with no expectation of that. So which is incredible. What other findings are you seeing from this now that we're through it?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're seeing a big impact on the workforce and a strain on employees who are taking care of their loved ones outside of work. In our survey, we found that 84% of caregivers are employed on top of taking care of their loved ones, and dramatically 1 in 3 plan to leave the workforce in the next 2 years to focus on caregiving. So we're seeing a really big strain on the workforce, and it's resulting in potentially a really big wave of people leaving their employers in the next couple of years. And then also, I'll mention for non-employed caregivers, we also had some interesting findings. 60% of non-employed caregivers say that caregiving plays a role in keeping them out of work. And for those who are not currently employed but interested in going back to work, 1 in 2 report being concerned about their ability to re-enter the workforce. So caregiving impacts those who are working and potentially pushes them out of the workforce. It also impacts those who aren't working and their ability to re-enter the workforce.
Well, that's just it's such an interesting thing when you think about it is like the biggest success model that you have from a business standpoint is creating an atmosphere of like peace of mind and removing fear. But when you're coming into a new employer or you're with a current employer and you have to have these tough conversations, which are needed, the fear factor has to be just so heightened from an employment standpoint. It's hard to have a work environment where you're not worried about losing your job, an opportunity to be promoted because you have to leave an hour earlier, or maybe there isn't flex based on the business too. The business model might simply not have the ability to accommodate some of these things. But that's just an incredible issue that I think everybody's seeing. I mean, they
Yeah,
have to be able to see.
caregiving costs employers $33 billion annually in lost productivity and absenteeism. So it's a major problem that employers are facing, and that's something where Givers is really excited to play a role in helping employers engage with their employees, offer them financial support where possible, and also just open up the doors for that conversation around caregiving and seeing how they can help. It's one of the biggest problems that employees and employers are facing. And then outside of the workplace, this is trickling into people's finances. So 45% of caregivers today are reporting being financially strained, which is up significantly from 18% in 2020. People are feeling the burden at work. They're also feeling it in their wallets and at home.
Yeah, I can really imagine that being the case. Max, while we are ready to wrap up the episode, if you had a crystal ball, do you have any final thoughts on where you see family caregiving going in the next few years?
Yeah, well, our goal and our mission for Givers is we envision a world in which family caregivers are seen for what they are, which is a part of the healthcare workforce, we can compensate them as such, we can support them as such. And so our goal as a company building the financial infrastructure for family caregivers to get paid is to create that pathway for employment through the work that caregivers are already doing in the home.
Amazing. Really awesome work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
it's a privilege to have you on, Max, and it's just I think it's a privilege to have somebody with your unique background in the health tech atmosphere, and then kind of shifting into, you know, basically being one of those family caregivers that's kind of been disrupted and thrown into the mix, but being action oriented to find some kind of solution to move this forward. And yeah, it's just amazing. I think it's a privilege for the country to have people like you working on problems like this, because it's so unseen, but it's prevalent everywhere. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm trying to be the change that I want to see in the world, and I saw it up close and personal in my own home, and I know how difficult it is for everyone, and there is support out there, and there's a lot of great innovation happening in the care space. So I'm really excited about everything that's moving forward in this country, and how we're going to be helping support family caregivers.
Great.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Max. And that's another episode of Let's Cover That.